Anecdote number 36 from Zen Is Right Here, Teaching Stories and Anecdotes of Shunryu Suzuki. During one session at Tassajara, it was very cold in the unheated Zendo. After a lecture, a student said, "Roshi, I thought you said that when it got cold, we'd figure out how to stay warm within our zazen." Suzuki Roshi answered, "It's just not cold enough yet." That's from Larry Hansen, Tassajara, circa 1968. Yeah, all right. Larry's up there now, up north. He's north of Port Townsend. He'd sit session with Silas up there sometimes, Silas only. And he'd go over to Japan. I mean, in recent decades anyway, and work on building jobs in Japan and come back. He was there back at the beginnings of Tassajara, and things were a little more austere back then. Our Zendo floor was like the one that burned down in 78. It was like where you'd walk, it had tatami where we'd sit, and there were 4 tatami aisles, and then between the tatami were aisles for walking, and they were like, I think maybe some sort of linoleum or something. It was this beautiful purple. It was really pretty. I liked it. It had a very deep, sort of dark look. But there wasn't much between it and the floor below, and the building was elevated. It was a wooden structure, so there was a lot of air, open air right under it. It would get really cold. Now, it wouldn't go much below freezing a lot. But it would get cold, and of course there was no heating there. There was no heating in the rooms. There was a wood-burning stove in the dining room, the guest dining room, which was more like a room for us to study and have meetings. And on day off evenings, we'd all go there to eat rather than eating in the Zendo. And during the guest season, the guests ate breakfast, lunch, and dinner there when they weren't getting bag lunches to go on hikes. So right at for the first practice period, as it was gearing up, there were seamstresses on treadle sewing machines. There were a whole bunch of them. I'm not sure. I wonder where they came from. Maybe Paul Disco knows. They made robes for us, and they were gray. They were out of some sort of, I don't know what they were out of. They were very thin. Maybe they were cotton. They were thin cotton. I still have mine. It's, it's worn and dirty, and I keep it in storage in a paper bag. The material is so thin I can push it all together like in the size of a cantaloupe, of a normal-sized cantaloupe. So it was for that first hot summer. So, I'd wear a white T-shirt, a V-neck T-shirt under it. And we didn't have a jiban, when we got into nicer robes, the jiban they're like under robes for the torso. And they form a nice line along the V of the robe that's coming down. We didn't have anything like that. I would just wear a white V-neck T-shirt under it and underwear. That's it. So I went through the summer like that. And as it started getting colder, I just continued wearing that. When you get into winter there, it doesn't get in these super, super low temperatures. There would be occasional, very occasional snow, not much. One year we had a great snow. And I won't get into that because, that was just magical. I mean, every once in a while there'd be a little more snow, but there wasn't a lot of snow there at all. There might be a light blanket of snow or a little bit of it in the mornings, and it would melt off. Sometimes it would stay a few days. And it really didn't get down to freezing that much. I have seen it get maybe as low as, I don't know. I'd like to ask Ethan and Leslie how low they've seen it go, because my memory might be wrong, but I think I remember it getting into the 20s, sure. We almost all wore, flip-flops, the ZIRH, cheap little rubber footwear, and the one thing is that people adjust to cold differently. Their bodies are different, and I happen to have been blessed with a body that is very resistant to cold and heat. My wife Katrinka points that out. As it got into the winter, I just continued wearing that thing. As a matter of fact, I would wear it with nothing else because I got sort of Spartan. I would just have that thin robe with no t-shirt and no underwear. And, I did get warm in the Zendo. I did generate heat when I was sitting. So I dressed like that through zazen, kinhin, zazen, service, like a 30-minute service, breakfast, and then afterwards I go to my room and put on warmer clothes, because as it got warmer, it was more difficult for me. I mean, as I was up moving around, and I'd go to work meeting with a sweater on. I didn't have to. I could have gotten into, braving it through that too. But I enjoyed, then I'd enjoy like the comfort of a sweater. And when you're leading a more austere life like that, little tiny comforts like having a sweater on are like a luxury that you can just bask in. Another thing is, I remember with Zori that my feet were okay in the cold, and a lot of people would wear socks and different things, and some people would even wear shoes and socks and then take them off when they got this into. That wasn't very common. And people would say, "Aren't your feet cold?" Well, actually, no, they weren't. They didn't bother me at all until it got below freezing. If it got below freezing, 32 I could do, but it would, even 32, certain point it would start to hurt. I'd start to feel it. Now that I remember it, I really think it had to get into the low 20s for my toes to start hurting. So I saw Suzuki Roshi for a Doksan with this robe, and he dug it. He didn't like people to go on trips. But you'll see, if you read the interviews, you will find, things that he's admonished us not to do, not to try to practice harder or more or get there earlier, this and that, others. You'll see him encouraging people who are doing that. And so it depends on what sort of spirit you did it in, Sitting extra was something he discouraged, trying to be a better student or this or that. So anyway, he liked it. Or maybe he was making fun of me and I just interpreted that he liked it. Oh, one thing I've got to add is Lama Anagarika Govinda, he wrote Way of the White Clouds, among other books and scholarship in the Tibetan Buddhism realm. He was Austrian. Long white beard, wife Ligotami. They came to Tassajara. They came to Tassajara in December in an interim. That is the coldest, darkest time of the year. The sun didn't even hit the bottom part of the valley where we are. I remember, and they ate in the zendo, and we brought her, she was from India, we brought her Tabasco sauce to put on all her food. I noticed, I don't know if I read it or if he said it and I heard it or what. They were just there in the stone room with the fireplace. And if you read Way of the White Clouds, it's talking about being in, 40 below weather in Tibet, where they would boil water to wash themselves with, and they'd turn it off, and then they'd plunge their hands into it, and it would already have ice on the top. And they'd break through the ice and then wash their face or whatever they were washing. So it's like these pictures of extreme cold. And you know what he said about his stay at Tassajara? He said it was the coldest place he'd ever been in his life. I'm thinking about that, being at Tassajara. Oh, so wonderful. I love it. I'd love to be back there. I like going there in the summer. I like the summer schedule. I like washing dishes. I wonder if they'd let me do that again. I don't know if I'll ever get back to America, though. Anyway, thanks for asking that question, Larry. Maybe we can give you a call. This has been a Cuke Audio mini podcast. You notice maybe that some of the audio, like this right here, is of a different sound quality than the other. That's because I'm injecting this after all the other was made. And when I made the other, I forgot to set my program, Audacity, for my Blue Yeti mic. So I don't know how it was recording it, but, it's different. It's more tinny through the internal mic of the computer. So I just thought you'd appreciate that bit of technical news. I'm DC, Poobah of Cuke Audio and Cuke Archives, coming to you from sleepy Sonora with Dogette Bandita, Feline Cuchita, and dear lovely Katrinka. Wishing you and yours and all of us a grand awakening.